Have you ever wondered what really makes a woman's body melt in your hands, not just physically, but emotionally? In this video, we're going to explore the hidden art of turning simple touch into unforgettable intimacy. It's romantic, it's a little daring, and it's all about understanding her secret desires rather than just using a technique. Stick with me to the end because I'll be sharing a few of my own personal stories and some rarely shared secrets in the middle and at the end of this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single tip. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a moment so electric that the hairs on your arms stood up, your heartbeat quickened, and yet, at the same time, you weren't sure what the other person was really feeling? That silent, pulsing question, does she want this, or am I just imagining it, has crossed more minds than we're willing to admit, and that tension between desire and uncertainty is exactly where either magic or misunderstanding can happen. I've sat with friends over coffee and listened to them tell stories of dates that went nowhere, of chemistry that fizzled out because somebody rushed or assumed or didn't ask. Again and again, I've heard the same thing. The lovers who leave a lasting impression aren't the ones with flashy moves or exotic techniques. They're the ones who know how to talk, how to listen, how to sense. They create a space where desire can breathe and where the other person feels safe enough to lean in. Real consent isn't a dry contract. It's an unfolding dialogue. It's a dance of words, eyes, breaths, and silences. It's what makes intimacy electric rather than awkward. Think about the times you felt most alive with someone it probably wasn't when they guessed what you wanted, but when they asked in a way that felt natural, when they paid attention, when they slowed down. That's what this first secret is really about. Picture this, it's a late evening, soft music in the background, you're sitting on a couch, knees almost touching. She laughs at your joke, her hand lingers on yours. Everything in your body says she's into you. Most people at that moment jump straight to action, thinking this is it. But the ones who truly understand connection do something else. They lean in softly and say something like, "I really like being close to you. How are you feeling right now?" That little invitation opens a door. It's a chance for her to lean in too, or to say she's not ready. Either way, you've built trust. You've shown self-control and respect. You've made her feel seen, not just touched. There's a myth that asking ruins the mood. In reality, it often does the opposite. When you ask in a confident, playful, curious way, you build anticipation. You tell her, "I see you, not just your body." And because she feels seen, she relaxes and lets go. Pleasure isn't just about physical sensation, it's about feeling safe enough to surrender to it. That's why, in study after study, the strongest predictor of sexual satisfaction isn't technique, it's emotional safety. I remember one woman telling me, years later, that what made an intimate moment unforgettable wasn't how good it felt physically, but how safe she felt emotionally. She said, "He didn't rush, he asked, he noticed me." That memory stayed with her far longer than any move could. And this is the part most men miss. When you communicate, you're not interrupting the moment, you're deepening it. You're layering in trust and anticipation. Consent and communication can even be playful. Whispering, "Do you like it when I touch your hand like this?" can be as seductive as any kiss. Smiling and asking, "Show me what you like," turns a potentially awkward question into an invitation. When you frame it as part of the experience, it stops being an obstacle and becomes a form of foreplay. Think of it as building a secret code between you. Every time you invite her feedback, you're adding another layer to that code. The more layers, the richer the experience becomes, and because you're both participating, it stops being something you do to her and becomes something you share. That shift is powerful. It transforms the dynamic from performer and audience into two co-creators of an experience. If you've ever been with someone who just assumed, you know how uncomfortable it can feel. Now flip that, imagine being with someone who, even in the heat of the moment, is tuned in enough to ask, to pause, to adjust. That's the difference between a forgettable encounter and one she remembers and wants to revisit. The difference between awkward and amazing isn't a hidden trick, it's a habit of tuning in. And here's another secret: when you get good at consent and communication, you actually become freer. You're no longer second guessing yourself because you've created a feedback loop. She's telling you what she likes, you're responding, the energy builds naturally. What started as a simple question turns into a flow where you both feel like you're exploring together. That exploration is where real passion lives. So the next time you're on the edge of intimacy, try this experiment. Instead of assuming, invite. Instead of rushing, slow down. Instead of treating communication as an interruption, treat it as foreplay. Use your voice, your eyes, your curiosity. Make it playful, make it romantic. When she feels that you're as interested in her feelings as you are in her body, she won't just consent, she'll participate, she'll guide, she'll open up in ways you can't script. You can even start before you're physically close. During a date, ask about her likes and dislikes. During a hug, notice her breathing. When you hold her hand, pay attention to whether she squeezes back. These small acts of awareness build a bridge long before you cross into more intimate territory. By the time you get there, you already have a shared language of yes, no, maybe, slower, faster. That language makes everything smoother, hotter, safer. This is why I call consent and communication the first and most important move. Everything else you might learn, any technique, any touch, becomes exponentially more powerful when it's built on this foundation. Because at the heart of intimacy isn't a secret trick, it's trust, and trust starts with asking, listening, and responding. When you approach intimacy this way, you don't just become better at a skill, you become the kind of partner who leaves a lasting, positive impression. And that, more than any move, is what makes someone beg for more, not because of what you're doing, but because of how you make her feel. Can I ask you something that most people never stop to consider? When you think about the moments that really turned you on, that felt electric and unforgettable, was it actually the touch itself? Or was it the build-up, the looks across the room, the way somebody made you feel before anything physical even happened? Most people will quietly admit it was the anticipation and the emotional pull that made everything else feel so intense. That's the second secret most men miss: connection before contact. I still remember a friend telling me about the first time she met the man who would become her husband. She said, "It wasn't that he swept me off my feet with some dramatic move. It was that he made me feel like the only woman in the room long before he ever touched me. He noticed small things, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the books she liked, the way she laughed at offbeat jokes." By the time they held hands for the first time, she already felt completely safe and drawn to him. The hand holding felt electric because the emotional connection was already there. This is where most people go wrong. They think intimacy starts when you cross a physical line. In reality, intimacy begins in the mind and the heart. Every glance, every conversation, every moment of sincere attention builds a reservoir of trust and desire. When that reservoir is full, even the simplest touch feels 10 times more powerful. Without it, even the fanciest techniques can fall flat. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, you meet someone, skip the conversation, rush straight to physical closeness. It might be exciting for a second, but there's an edge of awkwardness. In the second, you spend time listening, noticing, building small rituals of connection. By the time you finally hold her hand or brush a strand of hair from her face, she's already leaning in, breathing a little faster, her body and mind primed for closeness. Which scenario do you think creates a moment she'll remember? Emotional connection isn't just about talking, it's about presence. It's about actually being there, eyes open, phone down, energy focused on her. When you do this consistently, she begins to feel that your touch is an extension of how you see her, not just a grab for pleasure. That shift changes everything. It makes her want to be close to you, to open up, to trust you with more of herself. There's also something deeply attractive about a man who can hold back, who doesn't rush. When you resist the urge to leap straight to the physical, you're signaling confidence. You're telling her, I'm not desperate, I'm interested. That calm confidence gives her space to feel her own desire, to lean in voluntarily rather than being pulled. And when she does lean in, it's authentic. That authenticity creates a feedback loop. She feels safe, she feels wanted, she feels excited. You feel her excitement and respond. Now you're both creating the moment rather than one person trying to make something happen. Think of a great romantic film. The reason the first kiss makes audiences gasp isn't because of the mechanics of the kiss. It's because of all the build-up, the glances, the near misses, the tension. You can create that same effect in real life by learning to slow down and cultivate emotional closeness before physical closeness. Compliment her genuinely, share stories, listen to her dreams, make her feel seen. Make her laugh. These are not small steps, they're the foundation. When you finally do reach out and touch her hand, her neck, her back, it won't feel like a random move. It will feel like the natural next step in a story you've both been writing together. I've even seen this in long-term relationships. Couples who prioritize emotional connection, date nights, small surprises, honest conversations report far better physical intimacy than couples who treat affection as a purely physical act. Why? Because desire thrives where emotional safety and excitement exist together. When a woman feels emotionally close, she's more relaxed, more adventurous, more attuned. Touch becomes an extension of trust, not a test of it. So how do you build this kind of connection? Start by being curious, ask open-ended questions, notice what lights up her eyes, share a bit of yourself too. Vulnerability breeds intimacy. Let her see your sense of humor, your passions, even your nervousness. Paradoxically, letting her see your humanity makes you more attractive, not less. It tells her she's safe to be herself around you, that safety is the soil where desire grows. Then, pay attention to timing. Don't just think about moves, think about moments. Maybe she mentions she loves a certain song later, you send her a link to a live version. Maybe she's stressed from work, you offer a listening ear before you ever think about a touch. These gestures show that your interest isn't transactional. They show you value her whole being. By the time you're physically close, she already associates you with care, attention, and positive feelings. Her body responds accordingly. This isn't manipulation, it's respect. It's also, ironically, the surest way to create the passion and intensity most people are chasing. Because when someone feels safe, seen and desired, they don't hold back. They want to explore with you, they want to feel your touch. They're not just consenting, they're actively participating, guiding, encouraging, responding, and that's when intimacy becomes truly unforgettable. Think about your own experiences. When did a simple brush of a hand feel electric? When you were already emotionally invested? When did a more overt gesture fall flat? When the emotional groundwork wasn't there? This is your evidence, connection first, contact second. So the next time you're with someone you're attracted to, treat emotional connection as part of the seduction, not as a separate chore. Make it playful. Tease her mind, make her laugh, share a secret, ask her about hers, hold her gaze a second longer, listen like you're discovering a new world. Every small act of attention is a thread. The more threads you weave, the stronger the bond. And when the bond is strong, even the lightest touch can feel like magic. This is why emotional connection before touch isn't just a nice idea, it's the second essential move. It turns the what of intimacy into a why and a who. It transforms techniques into experiences. It takes you out of your head and into the moment with her, and it makes her feel something that no trick can manufacture, the sense that she's with someone who truly wants her, not just her body. When you give her that feeling, you don't have to chase intensity. It will find you. That's the real secret. Have you ever wondered how some people seem to just know what their partner wants without a single word being spoken? You've probably seen it at a party or in a movie, a couple exchanging a glance, a small touch, and suddenly the whole atmosphere between them changes. No explicit language, no instructions, just a quiet understanding. Most of us think that's some kind of magic. In reality, it's a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned. That's the third secret, learning to read her cues. I first began to notice this in my own life when a friend invited me to a salsa class. The best dancers weren't the ones with the flashiest moves. They were the ones who could feel their partner's weight shift, sense her intention, adjust in real time. It looked effortless, but behind that effortlessness was a lot of listening, not with the ears, but with the whole body. Intimacy works the same way. It's a dance where the music is her breathing, her eyes, her micro expressions. When you pay attention to those, you stop guessing and start responding. Picture a scene. You're sitting close, talking softly. She tucks her hair behind her ear, but doesn't pull away. Her knees angle toward you. She smiles a little longer than usual. These are green lights. Or perhaps, in another moment, she crosses her arms, leans back slightly. Her smile tightens. Those are amber lights. Most men miss them because they're too focused on what they're about to do next. The secret is to slow down enough to actually see what's happening in front of you. One of the most powerful things you can do is watch her breathing. When she's relaxed and happy, it's slow and deep. When she's excited, it quickens. When she's uncomfortable, it might become shallow or she might hold it. Without a word, her body is telling you how she feels. By noticing, you become attuned. You can mirror her pace, slow things down if she seems tense, or lean in when you sense she's eager. A woman once told me the moment she felt the safest with her partner was when he paused in the middle of kissing her, looked into her eyes, and simply said, "You're okay." She hadn't realized how much tension she was holding until he gave her that moment. That pause, that check-in, turned what could have been a rushed experience into something intimate and memorable. Reading cues isn't just about body language, it's about being present enough to give space for feedback. Think of it as learning a new language. At first, the signs are subtle. Maybe she squeezes your hand when she likes something. Maybe she tilts her head a little when she wants more of a certain kind of attention. Over time, as you observe and remember, you start to build a dictionary of her signals. Each relationship, each person has their own dialect. What matters is that you're paying attention and updating your understanding rather than assuming. This kind of attentiveness is deeply attractive. It shows her that you're not just performing a script, you're with her in the moment, and it does something else too. It frees you from anxiety. When you're tuned in to her nonverbal cues, you don't have to wonder, am I doing this right? She's telling you, even without words. You just have to listen with your eyes and your heart. Of course, sometimes cues can be mixed. Maybe she's nervous, but also excited. Maybe she's quiet not because she's uncomfortable, but because she's concentrating on how she feels. That's where gentle verbal check-ins complement your observations. A simple, "How does this feel?" or "Do you like this?" asked softly can clarify without breaking the mood. When you combine verbal and non-verbal communication, you create a feedback loop that builds trust and intensity. I like to use the metaphor of a musician. A great musician doesn't just play notes. They listen to the acoustics of the room, the breath of the audience, the feel of the instrument. They adjust constantly. That's why the same song can feel so alive in their hands. In intimacy, you are the musician and her responses are your music. If you're attentive, you can improvise, respond, build crescendos and pauses that feel natural and mutual rather than mechanical. You can practice this even outside the bedroom. Notice how she reacts when you touch her arm while talking. Notice her eyes when you tell a story. Notice the rhythm of her speech. All of these teach you about her comfort, her excitement, her boundaries. By the time you're in a more private moment, you've already trained yourself to pick up on her signals. You're not guessing, you're connected. Why does this matter so much? Because trust isn't built in one dramatic gesture. It's built in 1,000 small moments of noticing and adjusting. When she feels you noticing her, she feels respected. When she feels respected, she relaxes. When she relaxes, pleasure follows. That's the real cascade behind those seemingly magical moments where she begs for more. It's not because of a secret move, it's because she feels you're with her, attuned, caring, and responsive. So next time, instead of focusing on a checklist of techniques, treat the moment like a conversation without words. Ask yourself, what is her body telling me right now? Is she leaning in or leaning away? Is her breathing deep or shallow? Are her hands open or clenched? These signals are your map. Follow them with patience and curiosity. When you get lost, don't be afraid to ask softly. She will appreciate it far more than you think. As you keep practicing, something beautiful happens. The need for constant verbal check-ins decreases because you've built a shared rhythm. She knows you're paying attention. You know she'll signal you. The experience becomes smoother, more spontaneous, more passionate, not because you've memorized a set of tricks, but because you've learned to listen. This is the art of reading her cues. It's the difference between doing something to someone and sharing something with someone. It turns intimacy from a performance into a dance. And when you dance with someone who feels safe, seen, and understood, you don't have to force passion. It rises naturally between you. That's the real secret hiding behind the third move. Presence, patience, and the willingness to let her body, not your agenda, lead the way. Can I ask you a question that hardly anyone asks themselves in the heat of the moment? When was the last time you slowed down so much with someone you're attracted to that time seemed to stretch and everything, every look, every breath, every brush of skin felt twice as intense? Most of us rush. We're in a hurry to get to the next step, to prove something, to cross a finish line that doesn't even exist. And yet, the most unforgettable moments of closeness are rarely the fastest ones. They're the ones where you took your time, where anticipation became its own kind of pleasure. That's the fourth secret, the power of slow, attentive progression. I first noticed this years ago at a dinner party. A couple sitting across from me seemed completely lost in their own world. Nothing explicit was happening, just small gestures, a look here, a hand slowly tracing the rim of a wine glass while listening, a pause before speaking. The tension between them was so palpable that everyone at the table felt it. It wasn't about public displays of affection, it was about the rhythm they'd created. Slow, deliberate, attuned. By the time they actually touched hands, it was like watching a spark catch fire. Why does slowing down work so powerfully? Because anticipation amplifies sensation. When you rush, you collapse all that potential into a single moment. When you slow down, you stretch desire across time. You give each stage its own weight, its own story. Your partner has time to relax, to notice, to lean in rather than brace. The experience becomes something you're both building instead of something you're just doing. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, someone jumps from 0 to 60 in seconds. It might be thrilling for a heartbeat, but it often feels jarring, even invasive. In the second, they take their time. They talk, they laugh, they share eye contact. Maybe a light touch on the hand comes minutes before a hug. Maybe a compliment comes before a kiss. Each step feels like a chapter in a book, building toward a climax rather than skipping straight to it. Which one leaves a deeper memory? Slow progression also signals confidence. It shows that you're not afraid of the space between moments. You're not desperate for an outcome. You're enjoying the journey. That calmness invites her to relax. It gives her permission to explore her own desire, to meet you step by step instead of feeling pulled. The result is a mutual crescendo rather than a one-sided push. I once interviewed a woman who described her favorite intimate experience not in terms of what happened, but how it happened. She said, "He didn't rush. He noticed me. Every time I thought he might move to the next step, he paused, smiled, and stayed with what we were already doing a little longer." She remembered the pauses, the eye contact, the softness. She said it made her feel like she was the center of the universe. That feeling, not the specific moves, was what made her crave more. Slowing down doesn't mean being passive or tentative. It means being present. It means noticing her breathing, the way her body shifts, the warmth of her skin, the look in her eyes. It means letting each moment fully register before moving to the next. You can think of it like tasting a fine meal. If you swallow everything in 2 bites, you miss the flavors. When you savor each bite, the flavors unfold, mix, deepen. The same is true of intimacy. This kind of attentiveness is rare in a world that celebrates instant gratification. That's why it feels so special. It turns even small gestures into something charged. A simple caress on the back of her hand can become a promise. A slow kiss can feel like a whole story. And because you're moving at a pace she can feel and respond to, you're also creating space for her to guide you. She can show you with her body and her responses what she wants next. Another benefit of slow, attentive progression is that it gives you time to adjust. When you're rushing, you're guessing. When you slow down, you can actually feel her reactions, see her expressions, hear her breath. You can change course easily, add or remove intensity, pause if needed. This responsiveness builds trust. Trust builds relaxation. Relaxation builds pleasure. Think of a great piece of music. It doesn't start with the loudest note. It starts with a quiet introduction, builds themes, revisits them, layers harmonies. The climax only works because of the build-up. If the whole song were just a climax, it would be noise. By pacing it, the composer takes you on a journey. You can be that composer in your own intimate life. You can build a rhythm of glances, words, touches, pauses, and steps forward. Each moment becomes richer because of the one before. You can even practice slow progression in everyday interactions. Instead of immediately reaching for her hand, stand close, make eye contact, smile, wait for her to lean in. Instead of rushing to hug, let the anticipation build. These small habits train you to value pacing, to notice how tension rises and falls, to read her signals. By the time you're in a more private setting, you'll already be skilled at creating a rhythm she wants to follow. This approach isn't about manipulation. It's about presence and respect. It's about recognizing that intimacy is not a race but a dance. And in a dance, pacing is everything. When you lead slowly and attentively, your partner feels safe enough to follow, to improvise, to express herself. That's when magic happens, not because of a secret move, but because of a shared moment. So next time you're tempted to rush, try this. Pause, breathe, notice her. Ask yourself, what's the story we're writing right now? What would make this chapter unforgettable? Stay with the moment a little longer than you normally would. Look into her eyes, smile, let her feel your patience, let her desire rise at its own pace. You'll be amazed at how much more intense and memorable everything becomes. Slow, attentive progression is the fourth essential move because it transforms intimacy from a checklist into a journey. It turns anticipation into an ally rather than an obstacle. It allows connection to deepen with every step, and most importantly, it makes her feel not just wanted but valued, like she's worth taking time for. When you give someone that feeling, you don't have to push for passion. It unfolds naturally, step by step, until you're both exactly where you want to be. Have you ever noticed how many people think intimacy ends the moment the physical act stops? They roll over, check their phone, go silent as if everything that just happened can be folded up and put away like a blanket. Yet ask anyone about their most cherished memory of closeness, and you'll often hear about what came after. A quiet conversation, a long embrace, the way someone held them like they mattered. That overlooked chapter is the real secret of lasting passion. It's the fifth move, aftercare and respect. Let me tell you a story. A friend once told me about two very different experiences she had with the same partner. In the first, everything was rushed. The connection was good, but when it was over, he turned away, said he was tired, and fell asleep. She felt like an object, discarded as soon as the excitement ended. In the second, they took their time. When they were done, he pulled her close, stroked her hair, whispered silly jokes, and asked how she felt. She said she didn't remember the details of the act as much as she remembered the warmth afterwards, a glow that lasted for days. The difference wasn't technique, it was aftercare. Why does aftercare matter so much? Because intimacy is not just a physical event, it's an emotional experience. The body might be relaxed, but the heart and mind are still wide open. At that moment, a person is more vulnerable than usual. A small gesture of care, a touch, a word, a drink of water, a soft blank, it becomes a huge signal. You're safe, you're valued, you're more than a body. That signal turns a fleeting encounter into a bond. Respect also shows in the way you talk afterwards. Instead of rolling away, ask gentle questions. Did that feel good? How are you feeling? Do you want to cuddle, talk, or have some space? These are not just polite phrases. They're little bridges of communication that keep connection alive. They tell your partner that you're not just there for your own pleasure, but for the shared experience. I once interviewed a man who thought he was a great lover because he knew all the right moves. Yet when I asked his partners, they described him as mechanical. He was attentive during the act, but absent after. They felt used. When he learned about aftercare, staying present, offering water, massaging sore muscles, holding them close, everything changed. His partners began describing him as warm, trustworthy, someone they wanted to see again. Nothing about his technique changed, only his respect for the aftermath did. Think of it like a great concert. The music ends, the lights come up, but the encore is what people remember. That final song, the way the artist thanks the audience, creates a feeling of closure and gratitude. Without it, the show feels unfinished. With it, people leave glowing. Aftercare is your encore. There are endless ways to practice aftercare, and they don't have to be dramatic. A warm towel, a sincere compliment, running your fingers gently through her hair, asking if she's comfortable, holding her hand while she drifts off to sleep. Each small action becomes part of a language that says, "You matter to me." This language builds trust. Trust builds relaxation. Relaxation builds a desire to return. Respect also means giving space when needed. Sometimes after an intense moment, a person wants to be held. Other times they want a little solitude. Asking and listening without taking it personally is also aftercare. It's about her needs, not your ego. That flexibility shows maturity and emotional intelligence. In our culture of quick hookups and instant gratification, aftercare can feel old-fashioned, but it's actually revolutionary. It distinguishes a partner from a participant. It's the difference between a transaction and an experience. When you show respect for the whole person, body, mind, and heart, you invite her to trust you with deeper parts of herself next time. That trust makes everything more passionate and adventurous. Let's go back to my friend. She told me that the second experience, the one with aftercare, changed how she saw herself too. She felt cherished, not just desired. That feeling gave her confidence. She began to open up more, to share fantasies, to express what she wanted without fear. In other words, aftercare didn't just make the past experience better, it made the future experiences richer. That's the compounding power of respect. Slow down after it's over, breathe, look into her eyes, smile, whisper something kind, ask if she needs anything. These gestures take seconds, but they create memories that last. They also teach you something about yourself. That intimacy isn't about taking, it's about sharing. That lesson will echo into every part of your life, your friendships, your family, your work. People feel it when you treat them with dignity, even in private moments. Another aspect of aftercare is self-reflection. After you've shared something intense with someone, take a quiet moment to check in with your own feelings too. Did you respect her boundaries? Did you communicate clearly? Did you enjoy the connection or just the act? This kind of self-check builds integrity and helps you grow into the kind of partner people trust. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. When you care enough to stay, to listen, to soothe, to respect, you set yourself apart from everyone who disappears as soon as the thrill is gone. You become the person she thinks of later with a smile. the person she compares others to, the one she wants to come back to. That reputation is not built on secrets or tricks, but on simple, consistent care. So the next time you're with someone, remember, the moment doesn't end when the motion stops. That's just the halfway point. The final chapters, the cuddles, the conversations, the checking in, the small acts of kindness are what transform intimacy from something fleeting into something profound. Make those chapters count. Let her feel your respect, your gratitude, your humanity. Let her see that for you, she's not just a moment, she's a person. That's the fifth move, not a technique of the hands, but a habit of the heart. It's the move that makes all the other moves matter. It's the one that leaves her feeling safe enough to open again, to explore again, to trust again. And when you give someone that kind of safety, you won't have to make her beg for more. She'll want more naturally because you've given her something rare, the experience of being touched, cared for, and respected long after the act is over. If you've been curious about what really makes connection and intimacy unforgettable, you're in the right place. I've poured my most personal stories and practical secrets into this video so you can take your own relationships to a deeper level. Make sure you hit like, tap subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss these tips. And watch right through to the end, because that's where I share some of my most private insights, things I've never talked about publicly before.